Welcome to the PHNX Suns pregame show brought to you by our friends at the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you know whenever we are live. I'm Lindsey Smith here with Espo, and we are going to hold it down for you guys leading up to the Suns and the 76ers facing off this fine Sunday afternoon. Espo, how you doing?
I'm all right. No complaints. Always enjoy a good afternoon delight when it comes to the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, I feel like Sunday afternoon games, there seems to have been quite a few of them this year, which is great on one side of the coin and maybe not so great on the other side of the coin. I love it for the youth, right? This is the type of game that kids can go to. Parents are more inclined to take their kids to because it's earlier and they can get home before bedtime and before they have to do homework or whatever for the next day.
I also like them because they're preparing you for that prime spot during playoffs, because Sunday afternoon national TV is usually
Exactly.
a big slot. So it's training the fan for the playoffs as well. So.
Well, it's the Suns and the 76ers. How you feeling about this one, Espo? I think we're in store for a really good matchup this afternoon.
I'm feeling better because I get a text late last night, right? And I'm an old man, so Saturday night I'm in bed, I'm asleep, right? Phone is in the home office, but this morning I get up at the crack of dawn to get my daughter ready for the day, and I pick up my phone, and who is it? It's the mustache behind the Mac, Shane Diefenbach, going, "Hey Espo, James Harden's out in Old Town with me." Not with me. I mean, he didn't mean it like he's hanging out with him, because Shane goes to Old Town by himself, but Harden was out there, so maybe we'll have a little Old Town Scottsdale flu going on a Sunday afternoon. It'll make that matchup for Mikal Bridges a slight bit easier, which I'll take any advantage you can get. But hey, guess what? None of these games matter anymore. You're playing with Monopoly money because the Suns have clinched the #1 spot. So you know what's on the line today? It's simple. Pride. Pride's always on the line when you go out there. But the chance to move to 61 wins and get closer to that franchise record. But then MVP votes and Defensive Player of the Year votes are on the line. Joel Embiid, one of the favorites for both of those awards, is out there tonight. And Mikal Bridges and Devin Booker have something to say about both those awards. That's what I'm looking forward to going into this evening.
Yeah, Shane dropped a comment in the chat and said that James Harden was in Old Town last night. So make sure you hammer all his unders. I mean, it's funny to say that, but at the same time, like, that's been a running joke for literally decades now. Not just for the Suns, but literally any team that comes to Phoenix to play in this city. The running joke is Scottsdale or Old Town is undefeated. Old Town is one of our best X factors that we have here in Arizona from a sports perspective, because everybody wants to go out in Old Town when they get here. And especially if you arrive, like this game was on a Sunday, they arrived yesterday, like on a weekend too. You know, they're all going to be there. Probably they're really, really late. And listen, I'm not saying that these guys can't handle it. We've all heard the stories recently, decades ago. Like literally, we're talking like 20 plus years ago, players who went out and partied really hard days before the game or the night before the game and still happen to have really good games. But gotta love having Old Town as an X factor for us here.
Yeah, luckily the Suns have herd immunity against it. They've been there so much, it can't throw them off their game with it. The other factor tonight, and the chat has already, the Cove Crazies have already dove headfirst into this. One Scott Foster will be calling the game, the arch nemesis of Chris Paul. So there's that. I mean, Chris Paul doesn't fare well when it's Scott Foster, but this is also a game that it doesn't matter if you fare well. So, you know what? If CP wants to show Scott Foster up and get tossed, I'm perfectly fine with that today. Have fun, boys, because you've earned it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, everyone in the chat's like, it's 5 versus 6 tonight, Suns and Sixers, because they got Scott Foster on their side. Did I ever tell you about the time? I think it was the Western Conference Finals, I believe. I went to one of the games and there was a particular person there. I won't say what their job was, but there was a particular person at the game who had a Scott Foster like voodoo doll as a necklace. Like it was just a drawing of it. It wasn't like a real doll or anything, but just a drawing of it because it got to the point where it was so bad. And we understand how bad Scott Foster officiates Suns games that they were like tapping into whatever sort of things you were feel comfortable tapping into in order to help the Suns out because of him. And I thought that was very telling.
I feel very much the same way. I don't wish for injury, but if Scott Foster was injured and couldn't ref the playoffs, I wouldn't shed a tear. Is I guess what I'm getting at. Not I don't advocate anybody getting injured, but karma's a bitch is what I'm trying to say.
It's so disappointing that we even have to worry and look at who's officiating Suns games, and that when we do look at them, if there's particular names on that list, we immediately are like, great, this is going to be a tough night. Like that just seems like, not to go down this conspiracy theory rabbit hole here, but just poking our heads in a little bit. Something seems like that's not cool. I feel like the NBA should have a conversation with certain officials when it gets so big and so blatantly obvious that even fans are like, yo, what's going on here?
Hey, when you look at Tim Donaghy and what he did to this franchise, I mean, not kindly either. It was not gentle what he did to this franchise. There's no wonder to me that fans feel that way. And in a lot of cases, fans will complain about refs and have absolutely no reason. The Suns have legitimate proof. Suns fans have legitimate proof that they got screwed by a ref who was gambling on the game at one point. There's irrefutable evidence of this. So it does not surprise me when things start to look a little as if they're going afoul, no pun intended, with the refs, that Suns fans turn to that. And Scott Foster's record versus CP3 seems shady at best. And, I'm not saying he's on the take, but he obviously has a bias against Chris Paul. There's obviously some beef there. And it's difficult because these guys who and women who ref these games are human. So if bias slips in, which is bound to happen, that becomes a problem. And that's what I think goes on with Scott Foster is it's more of a beef with Chris Paul than a mental, I want to legitimately screw these people. But if you have that in your head, of course it's going to taint what you call and the way you view a game.
Right. And then that in turn hurts the NBA as a whole, right? Like that's a stain on the reputation of the league. And it may not be like this huge, big thing, but it is something. And it's something that the league, I feel like, should at least look into a little bit or at least have conversations about. And I'm not saying they don't, but it is interesting. However, I will say that this is the first game that he's officiated for the Suns this season. So maybe this is their way of, we did look into it and we are giving you the subtle head nod that we're aware, but we can't take him off all the games or else then it'd be too blatantly obvious. Who knows?
Call me when they take him off Suns playoff games. And then I don't really care. Fabio and Tizdu in the chat say, that Tim Donaghy during the investigation actually spoke with Scott Foster. There's call records. I know. I'm well aware. I've read everything. I listened to the Whistleblower podcast. I understand there's a connection there. They either couldn't or didn't try to prove anything. And I understand why the NBA doesn't want to pull that thread too hard, because if you find out everything is a certain way, that the entire game unravels. All that money comes into question, and you don't want that to be the case. So
yeah, I need
it
to
is what it is,
podcast.
and let's just no Scott Foster, no Scott Foster in the playoffs, and I'll be okay, or at least not in deciding games. I'll be okay.
All right, now that we have talked about Scott Foster and aired our grievances, we're all on the same page. We dislike it. Let's get into a little bit more of the action on the court tonight. So, Espo, you brought it up off the top. This is a game that has a lot of award chatter, if you will, swaying people's opinions on the line. So let's talk about that. First and foremost, we'll start with Devin Booker and the MVP award race. And a good friend of ours, Matt Peterson, tweeted something out today that was interesting and got us kind of just talking about it. So let's share that tweet. Maybe. Okay, maybe not. Espo, break down what that tweet was for us.
Well, basically, it was the video of Suns fans in Denver on Thursday night chanting this.
Hands, but again, didn't force the issue. Comes up with 10 assists. Book will get a couple of more free throws.
Well, the Suns fans, MVP for Book.
I mean, we've had 2 MVP chants tonight. One for
pretty
Jokic
loud.
from the Denver fans, most of which who have left. And I would say roughly 80% of the fans who remain here are Suns fans.
Gotta love it when you're in the house of the reigning MVP and your fans show up and show out so much that they do the MVP chant right there in Ball Arena in Denver. You can enjoy your Suns in 4, but that's a moment where Suns fans show Denver that no, this may be your home, but right now it's our town and this is our guy. And we didn't notice it night of. We noticed it. We didn't have the clip night of. Wanted to show that because Suns fans believe so much in Devin Booker. And I remember, I think it was pre-pandemic, so it would have been 2019, beginning of that season. Suns started off hot. One of the games was against Embiid and the 76ers.
Mhm.
And fans started the Booker MVP chant then. And I feel like it was a precursor to what we've seen over the last year and a half from the bubble through this season, and what today could culminate in is Devin Booker putting together another masterpiece to make it very clear he should be squarely in that MVP race. He does it against Jokic the other night. If he does it against Embiid tonight, it's a statement. It's very clear that he deserves to be part of that race. And it won't just be Suns fans in Denver chanting that very loudly. That entire arena out there at Footprint Center will make it very clear to the national media and those talking heads that will be talking NBA basketball on Monday that this is a guy that should be talked about more often and should be considered in that MVP conversation.
I think the thing that's so crazy about all of this is I saw a lot of people talking about this on Twitter over the last 48 hours or so, is that most Suns fans aren't even mad about the idea that Devin may not win it. We're just upset and feel very disrespected in the fact that for Devin, we're feeling disrespect because Devin's not getting his respect, right?
Yeah.
Because he's not even in the real conversation. He's on the fringe. And at the very least, you should just be having the conversation about what he is doing this season, what he's been able to do throughout his entire career. I understand MVP is seasonal, but even just looking at this season alone, he should be in those conversations more. We're not even asking you to necessarily give it to him. I know a lot of people are, but we're really at the bottom line, where this all started was just because he's not even in the conversation in a substantial way. And that's not right. That's unfair to all of the work that he has put in through the course of his career, the impact he's had on this team this season, and what he's been able to do. And that's the biggest portion of this that I feel like sometimes maybe I don't think we've even really talked about that much here, because we're just talking about it as an overarching thing. But when you really break it down into the sections here, you're not even wanting to talk about him. And it's why? Are you really that upset about something? Are you really just not paying that much attention? I understand that we always say, and I've made excuses for national media in the past as well, as far as saying, maybe they can't watch every Suns game. They're spread thin. It's impossible to watch every game in the league. But we're talking about the best team in the NBA, the best team since what? At least we've been saying the Phoenix Suns are the best team in the NBA all season, because they actually have been. It's not like they just barely are squeaking their way by. It's by a mile. It's a very substantial best team in the NBA this year. Why aren't you paying more attention to that team?
Well, you're not doing your job at this point if you're not paying attention to the Suns, because they are the best team. They will be the number 1 seed in the Western Conference in the playoffs. You should know everything you can, because you will sound stupid if you do not. And look, he heard he's not a top 10 scorer, right? That was the argument last week by many people. And then what does he do? He drops 49 and he jumps Donovan Mitchell and Nikola Jokic to be 9th in scoring in the NBA. Like, so that's not an argument anymore. I saw Long John Silver 85 in the chat say they won't give him the MVP because he talks too much shit. Do
So
we
do a
forget
lot
that
of people in
Jordan,
this league.
Kobe, like all these guys that had games that were predicated? I mean, Larry Bird supposedly is the biggest shit talker ever, and they had no problem giving it to those guys. So I don't buy into that either. Devin Booker isn't part of this conversation, A, because what Chris Vernon told us last week, that the national perspective, that's where I was going, is that Chris Paul is the reason that this team is good and Devin Booker is not, right? Which is not fair if you watch. And that's not a knock on Chris. He was kind of describing the general feel with that. I believe that. And then there's just this thing with Devin Booker since he scored that 70. He was too young to do it. They didn't like the way he did it. Somehow that became a front to a lot of basketball minds, and it's been held against him. At this point, he should be part of the conversation. I'm not saying he should win it, right? He should be considered. He should be top 4, really. I mean, he should be right there with Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, and Devin. It should be those 4 that are the discussion, but it's just not. A game like today can go a long way because you're head to head, and I know they play different positions, but if you drop 30, 35, 40 against the 76ers and Embiid, it makes a point,
right?
And that's what he needs to do.
And Nicholas in the comments said he's been in the conversation for a week now. I feel like the conversation around Devin has been why he's not in the conversation recently. And just within the last 48 to 72 hours, that kind of started to shift, but only because of the backlash from everybody, from all of us on social media, from now players getting in on this, former players like NBA legends getting in on it now. I think it hit the point where everybody was questioning it in their minds, like, why aren't we having this conversation, or why aren't they having this conversation? And now people are speaking out more and more and more, and bigger names, people who have huge followings, who have influence in this league, are actually starting to say things out loud more. And that's what's helped shift this. Granted, a lot of what Devin's been able to do over the last week or two has also helped as well, but it's not like this is new to anybody who's actually paying attention. And I think that's the disappointing part, is that, sure, you could point to this last week or two worth of play and be like, yeah, Devin's been playing out of his mind and had some really cool big games. But Devin's been playing out of his mind all season long and been having really cool big games. But now it's getting to the point where more people are bringing it up, and now you're forced to have those conversations. You can't shy away from it anymore, because if you shy away from it now, people are like, okay, you're intentionally doing this. You can't, but Nicholas also said, just give him first team all NBA and I'll be happy. And I think that, honestly, I want him to be in the MVP conversation, but if we're talking about actually getting awards, I think I would prefer him to get first team all NBA because of the monetary tie that does for him down the line.
Right. Look, I think there's a better chance he winds up in the top 4 MVP discussion than he makes first team. That first team's going to be Ja, Steph, and then Jokic, Embiid, and LeBron probably. And I just don't see him sort of planting Steph or Ja just because of the national narrative around those guys. And I get it. Steph's been hurt, but they gave him all the credit, and probably rightfully so when you look at how bad the Warriors have been. But so I don't see him making first team. Last thing about Devin, and I'll speak on Mikal here briefly, but Devin, there's been 12 people to have the best finish with their team having the best record in the NBA and average 25, 5, and 5 or more in a season, right? Each one of those guys, all 12, have won MVP. Devin Booker would be the first one not to. Just take that as you will. In terms of defensive player of the year, Mikal Bridges, and this is another thing Chris Vernon brought up last week on the program, was that Mikal Bridges needed a statement moment, right? To really solidify an opportunity to win defensive player of the year. Today can be that moment. Shut down James Harden completely, with the assist from Old Town Scottsdale, and you can make that. Get 4 or 5 steals and shut down James Harden, and all of a sudden you're squarely in the talk to win that award, not just to be part of the discussion, to win that award. I want to see that from Mikal tonight. We don't have a lot else that we're rooting for. Those are 2 things I'm rooting hard for.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this would be a great opportunity for Mikal to really swing that opinion a little bit further to his side of the court. We all have seen it night in and night out what Mikal is able to do, but having a really big game like that, like the one he had against the Warriors at the beginning of the season, if we can get a couple more of those games out of him here in this final stretch of games, that's going to pay massive dividends for him come voting time in the people who have the votes eyes, because it's all recency bias, right? Like you may have done really amazing stuff early on in the season, but that stuff has been kind of forgotten now. Like this final stretch here, that's the time to really go out there and shine your brightest, because that's what people are going to remember the most when they're writing down or checking off whose name on all of these different awards. So fingers crossed, we get a really good game out of both Devin and Mikal. And somebody in the comments said, I'm sorry, I can't find it now. Nicholas again, Suns have the luxury of padding Booker's numbers if they want to now, since they already clinched number 1. I mean, it's very, very true though. Like not just with Devin, but also with Mikal. Like they have the luxury of being able to be like, let's just see what we can do here. But I don't think they would actually do that, to be honest with you, because they're more focused on the bigger picture.
Could you not see Chris Paul feed Devin Booker a little bit more just to make a point, though? I could totally see that.
Chris Paul, absolutely. And he wouldn't say anything about it. He would never tell you that, but he would low-key do it for sure.
This whole team, I mean, they believe in their teammates so much. They're always willing to make that extra pass. It would not shock me if they try to make a point when it comes to Devin or Mikal at any point the rest of the way. Yeah, they want to win. They want, the standard is the standard, and all the cliches that you can have with it. But I still wouldn't be surprised if we see a game like that where it's like it's time to give Devin his flowers and do that out of appreciation. So maybe today will be that day. Yeah.
I think that would be a game that we would all be like, this is super fun. Like it would just be really enjoyable as a Suns fan to watch that. Yeah. All right, let's take a look at tonight's injury report to see what we're working with here. On the Suns side of things, Cam Johnson remains out. Unfortunately, the Suns did add JaVale McGee to the injury report for this game. He is out with a non-COVID related illness. On the 76ers side, outside of anybody who was on G League assignment, no one. They are full squad, ready to go for this game. So we're going to get their best. We're absolutely going to get their best tonight.
And it still might not be enough. Congratulations, Philly.
And then we do have one update for you guys. Espo, I know that we were talking about this a little bit pre-game before we came on. Ife Lundberg, we do have an update for you on him. So Espo, tell us what's going on that side of things.
He's in Phoenix, everybody. Woo! He hasn't practiced yet. My guess is, there's medical tests. There's, all that they have to do when a guy gets here. Once he clears whatever he's going through, I assume he'll practice probably early this week. And I'm guessing we see some Ife in short order here just to see what he can provide, since they're getting a two-way look at this guy, and who knows, we may see some big Ife numbers, because everybody says if there was a guy in Europe playing in the European leagues that was NBA ready, it was this guy. And the Suns might have a diamond in the rough. We'll find out. We got a handful of games to find out. I love Fabio Ife, Rookie of the Year. I don't think there's enough time for that, as much as I'd love to see it. So
would he count as a rookie?
I don't think there's enough games for him to count as that. I think he'd get another run as a rookie next year, depending on playing time. I don't know the exact specifics, but I think there's a minutes requirement there. So we'll find out.
I liked his dude's comment, big if they true. That's hilarious. Y'all are so clever.
Earlier, so says Jay said his wife didn't believe this is live. So hi, Mrs. Lawyer Friend.
Hi. That's funny. I love that. All right, so that's the injury report for tonight's game and a little bit of an update on FA. We'll definitely keep you guys posted if we hear anything else on FA and when we may see him suit up for a game. Of course, Gerald will be at practices, so just keep it locked right here at PHNX Suns all week long. Espo, tell us what our friends over at the DraftKings Sportsbook app think about tonight's game. Are they on our side or not?
Let's see. They are. They have the Suns
Hey.
favored by 4 today at home this afternoon, which is I'm surprised because the Sixers are still playing for playoff positioning. They have a lot on the line. The Suns are like, hey, this is just gonna be fun. Let's go out and
This
play
is
some
cruise
ball.
control now.
Let's play some Sunday afternoon ball and let's get some run in. So, maybe that helps. Maybe having that lighter attitude. But I'm surprised. I was expecting 1 or 2 point today, but it is a Suns 4-point favorite today.
Well, and especially considering the Sixers are fully healthy, so there are zero excuses on that side of things that you can use for tonight's game. And the Suns are still without Cam Johnson, who's one of their top offensive firepowers off the bench, and JaVale McGee, their backup center. So you would think that would kind of skew in the Sixers' favor here, but maybe the DraftKings Sportsbook app is paying attention. My cat is about to jump on this chair. Hold on. he's getting real antsy here. But I figured that might skew in the Sixers' favor, but I guess the DraftKings Sportsbook app has been paying attention enough to the Suns to realize what they're capable of doing.
If the Suns want to cover that spread, they're going to need a big game from DeAndre, and I have a feeling he was kind of a wallflower last time these two played. I think he had 10 points in total. They're going to need him to step up with JaVale McGee out, stay out of foul trouble, and be one of the statistical leaders this afternoon. So that'll be a key to covering that spread.
All right, we're going to share now what we're putting our money on heading into tonight's game. So I have Shamet over 1.5 threes tonight at a plus 105. He's been playing really well. His offense has turned the corner, and he's been contributing on that side of the court a lot. So I'm going to take the over on Landry Shamet tonight.
I like that. I swing like I'm in a home run derby every time we do this. I'm taking Booker and Harden both to have over 8 assists at a plus 750. So I like it. I feel it. I'm going to go with it, and maybe you can make some big money. Saul has CP3 over 14.5 points at a minus 110. And then Gerald takes Brotherly Love at plus 100. I'm surprised that's a plus. I just did. I thought that was almost a given, where you wouldn't be in the plus, but
I don't know. Is there a lot of brotherly love happening in Philly? Maybe now, but there definitely wasn't earlier this year.
I don't know. I just
am I throwing a little too much shade their way?
No, well, I mean, Philly's known to be a bunch of assholes, so that doesn't surprise me, on and off the court. But I just felt like the Suns have such brotherly love; it's enough for them and the Philly roster. So.
That's true. We could show them the way. We can give them the blueprint on how to really find that brotherly love. Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought? All right, Espo. We are just a few minutes away from tip-off here in this one. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Nah, get out there, get in there, watch this game, enjoy it. It should be a fun one, and I think we're going to see some statements by the Phoenix Suns today.
And as someone in the chat mentioned earlier, get some snacks and drinks ready because this might be a little bit longer of a game than we all anticipated. But don't worry, we'll be right back here, same place for you guys to come hang out with us after this one wraps up. So be sure to tap into our post-game show. Hopefully we'll be hanging out in the VIP lounge. Until then, you can follow along throughout the game with us on Twitter at PHNX_Suns. Or if you are a GoPHNX.com member, you can hang out with us in the members only Discord. Bye.